Hello YouTube, it's Nite, and this is Liga C, round 2 match between JP Smith and Illluvision. Let's go ahead and jump right in with players introduction. In the top right hand corner we have Illluvision spawning as our purple UEF commander, starting off with a triple research factory build. Very interesting indeed, but hey, this is Liga C, anything can happen and everything will happen. His opponent on the other side of the map is our blue Cybern commander with the name of JP Smith. JP Smith is fairly familiar to us as he has appeared in pretty much every season, I think, if not all seasons, and most tournaments last year, but always obviously never had too much luck, unfortunately for him, although I do really like him as a player in general. I think he's doing a lot of interesting things, and I think he's opening up on Arctic Refuge for the most part the correct way here, with one air factory and one land factory. Maybe he's been watching Iron Commander play a little bit. This is certainly an okay build here, but the one thing that I already see, of course, is that air not being used. If you're opening up with air and your opponent is not opening up with air, especially when he has a triple research factory opening like this, and I think JP did see it, you really should be causing a little bit of damage here, and at the very least moving your air around and trying to utilize the advantage that you have. So I just wanted to say that I'm going to be trying to do a few videos each week, one for each league, I think is what I have decided. I'm not going to be doing replays of the week anymore, so that's kind of going to be on the back burner for now on. I'm going to try to do at least one video for each league, if possible, as that first radar does get picked off and we do have anti-air guns on the mass extractor. So it's actually a fairly standard build from our UEF player, but JP Smith actually does a good job here moving his air around, finally engaging and taking out a radar. So one video per league, so 4 videos total. They're going to be coming now your way Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays is what I'm going to be trying to do. And, you know, I'll try to stick to the schedule, but, you know, life always happens. And I'm going to try at least to bring you 2 videos each week at the very minimum for 2v2 and the Liga A. But we'll see about, you know, sometimes League C probably won't have very good replays, so we'll see. Now, another thing that I wanted to start doing, as we see a very interesting strategy by Illluvision, or rather the continuation of the strategy. And honestly, I've seen some pros do this, so don't think this is a terrible strategy, because it is certainly an interesting one, and it can work. So while this is a really strange execution, I think, and JP Smith already has these MMLs, and again, I think JP Smith, if you're watching this, you're definitely doing a great job expanding. You just need to utilize your units a little bit better. You definitely have the advantage here. You have very nicely positioned air scouts here, so I really like that. And he's beginning to utilize his mobile missile launchers. So yeah, as I was saying, I will try to start a new thing on my stream, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Night of Misfortune. There's a link down in the description below, as always. But I will be I'm thinking of starting to review these replays live for you guys and kind of chat with y'all if there's enough interest. So starting next week, I'm going to be, as part of my review of these replays, because I have to watch these replays anyway, so might as well just make them fun. I usually watch them on +10 speed though, but for you guys, maybe 3 or 5 speed. And we're just gonna, you know, take an hour or so to watch them, and then I'll actually cast these live, or maybe I won't cast them live, depending on, you know, whatever. So we'll play it by ear. But the bottom line is that I'm gonna start trying to do these live, or a little bit more of a live engagement, and hopefully you guys like that. JP Smith actually doing a very good job with his Cobras. It's been a while since I've watched this replay actually, so kind of forgotten what happens. Well, I do remember the ultimate outcome, which is why I picked this replay to be cast ultimately. But we do see air factories going on down, and JP Smith is actually doing very well. He's taking out expansions now. Building Cobras is absolutely the correct way to go here. He's now plopping down those research stations. The problem is that JP Smith really hasn't done enough damage for to prevent this from happening. Illluvision is going that land gantry, and those fat boys can be very, very dangerous against just, you know, regular land spam. And JP Smith, again, you have units sitting here in the center, as I'm still getting lag. So part of the reason why I might not be bringing you some of these videos is because recently I've been having quite a bit of computer issues, and it's not necessarily with recording, but with processing and my graphics driver, and it's been very difficult, to say the least, to get a video out lately, which is why I've actually been planning to release videos most days, but it's been difficult to get those rendered because, like, the last video I published, I think it was the top 10 video, that took 5 renders for me to get through, and that was very, very painful. My stuff just kept crashing. We do see a second land gantry being popped down before the first fat boy is even out, so that just indicates that JP just has not done enough damage here, unfortunately. And there's already wasps out here on the field, so it's going to be very difficult to really do anything with air. The one thing that fat boys are very poor against is, of course, gunships. So that transition, JP, might have been a little bit better than Cobras, you know. And one thing that I do suggest players to try out, if you're, you know, I wouldn't say JP is a beginner, but he definitely has areas to improve. One thing that you can utilize against a build like that is just an overwhelming amount of, well, not even an overwhelming, just a, you know, medium amount of loyalists against this is actually okay, because you can micro around mech guns and really do some damage that way instead of going Cobras, and really save your research, because obviously Illluvision had several options where he could go off of this triple research station build. And if he's gone fat boys like he has done right now, you just switch to gunships. And I think maybe even plopping down a second air factory would have helped JP here. But nevertheless, he's doing very well on his expansion. He actually has 2 expansions out, and that's absolutely the right thing to do on against a strategy like this, because your opponent chances are is not going to be able to grab those expansions early on. But the problem now is this fat boy is coming hard and strong for this expansion in the north, and really there's not much that can contest it. But JB is actually planning a really interesting strategy here to try and pincer this fat boy. Unfortunately, his loyalists stop, and the micro is not the greatest here. If that second blob kept going, it might have been able to intercept this fat boy. This fat boy is already at half health just from those little loyalists, and now that this first blob has attacked, the second blob is just barely arriving, and there is no micro against those mech guns. There really should be micro against the mech guns and the fat boys. These things are not the hardest to micro against. So unfortunately, JP does end up losing most of his blob here, although he does do fairly decent damage here, but not enough for the amount of time that has passed. And really, it's going to be those fat boys that are being built 2 at a time that's going to give Illluvision here a little bit of an advantage, because ultimately losing 2 mass extractors is not a huge deal, and these blobs will not be able to handle it in the long run. It looks like JP Smith does want to go more spam here, which is completely understandable, although megaliths are always a good choice, especially if you get to those cicadas, which is a possibility because we're already at 15 minutes. We have 3, 4, 5, oh, actually 6 research stations, 7 research stations. So JP Smith should actually have quite a bit of research points, and he's been taking out quite a bit. So I think cicadas are completely possible at this point in time. He is going for spam and those jump jets, of course. Now that is a little bit of a difficult and very micro-intensive strategy that definitely the better players execute very flawlessly, and it is possible, especially if you micro. But unfortunately, JP, here the loyalists need some micro to survive. You could probably have picked off this fat boy here, but the problem is that you still have these other fat boys that Illluvision is really doing a really nice job spreading out here. to cover as much ground fire as he can. Doing a very nice job here. Pulling his bad boy out. Unfortunately, it is going to fall. Did stray a little too far from its friends there. But Illluvision is still okay here. The way you counter this really is, at this point, is try to split your blob. And JP has kind of been doing that. But unfortunately, he is starting to lose his expansions at this point. And that just gives more research points to your opponent. And it's going to be even more difficult for you to deal with these fat boys if they get more stars behind them. So a lot of research stations going down for JP, and I'm just wondering where his research points are going. It looks like he's put in quite a bit of stars on his loyalists, which I don't dislike. There's adapters now coming out, so that's definitely not a terrible unit here, especially with the air coming out. But the fat boys are actually being artillery units essentially. They're fairly decent, and if Illluvision tries to plop down a couple of land factories, starts plopping down mobile missile launchers, demolishers, especially P-shields, that will be very difficult to deal with. I definitely like the route of Megalith and Cicada in this case. And it looks like that land gantry is going to go down for JP Smith, as his expansion on the right, however, does end up falling. And you know, JP Smith looks like has a very, very good economy, because he was able to spam out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, actually 12 land factories and a land gantry and an air factory, and still spamming research stations here. Unfortunately, his unit control is not the greatest here, as he continues to take fire, and those loyalists are actually stopping here and then and walking into that research station fire, and the mass extractor fire is definitely not the greatest either. Illuvision's micro is pretty good for those fat boys as he pulls them back, baiting, essentially pulling JP's army into his own fire. So definitely well played by Illluvision there. And he melts away another army, buying himself even more time. And that's exactly what you want to do when you're opening up with a strategy like this. Doing very, very well. And at this point, I might even push down the center here, but it looks like Illluvision is going to try and play it safe here. Going to push down, up, or not down, to the side there. It looks like, nope, he's changing his mind once again. Honestly, just sending 3 fat boys over there will be sufficient. JP's production is now going down. He has his 3rd land gantry queued up, 2nd one building, and it probably is a mega coming out from here. Definitely is a mega, and I would really like to see cicadas at this point, but unfortunately that's not what JP is prioritizing here. Is there going to be a cicada coming from here? You know, his economy might be starting to catch up to him, because he's lost the expansion to the right, although his expansion on the top has really been paying off, and it's probably already a couple of vets on that. Yeah, if not fully vetted. Let's see. Yeah, they're fully vetted mass extractors at the top as well. Those fat boys are, however, going to come in here and start engaging in this army. JP Smith looks like he's going to be trying to play for a little bit of a turtle game here until his experimental production catches up. But unfortunately, without those cicadas, it's just never going to catch up, especially against these fat boys. And it looks like there's actually artillery starting to make its way onto the field from back here, as Illluvision has really started to get those research points. He's actually had quite a bit of research structures out in the field for quite some time. He even has a King Cryptor making its way out towards JP, and at this point, really, I mean, even a cicada might be a difficult hold, but no, there's still only megaliths making their way out on the field. As I'm still having problems with my driver, I'm really gonna have to start trying to look into that, because it's been lagging for quite some time. So hopefully for the next video I will have this fixed. JP's army is just melting away. There's a jump jet there, but unfortunately that leaves the megalith completely exposed, and these land units just get completely obliterated by the King Cryptor here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I fear is the end of JP Smith, even though He has 2 Megaliths coming out there, but even if he had a Psychota, like I said earlier, supporting this King Cryptor has too much health. 75,000 to be exact, almost 76. Let's see how fast it melts this Megalith away. Second shot takes it to about quarter health from 50%. Wow, that is truly impressive. Not even Structure Detonate will save JP Smith at this point, as unfortunately our blue Cybran Commander has no way out of this match. He's gonna try and wait for a couple of more Megas, I think, to pop out, but unfortunately, again, it's just not gonna do the trick, especially because they are being targeted now by the Fat Boys, and JP Smith is actually gonna get killed by that King Cryptor right there. And what a wonderful, very entertaining game from Illluvision. Forgot what country he is from. I think it's Germany. So very, very impressive game, and I hate to see JP fall again, but as you will see in the recap portion of this video, that his position in this league table is actually not too bad. So let's actually go ahead and jump to the summary of game 1, because this was, of course, game 2. And I'll show you the league table as well. Game 2 on Seraphim began very interesting, with Illluvision going with a triple land factory very quickly as Aeon. Definitely the correct faction, I would say, for this map. And his opponent, of course, JP Smith, grabbing an air factory. Illluvision then proceeded to push out with his tanks, realizing that his opponent has opened up with air. And this map, being fairly small here, is going to be very, very good for a triple fac push against air openings. JP does switch to bombers, which slows down Illluvision here for the time being. I'm not sure I would have pulled back my units here, but nevertheless, it does its job for a little bit, giving JP an opportunity to try and catch up on the land forces. Few moments later, Illluvision sets up a nice flank, splitting JP's demolishers around and actually pushing with his bottom forces without too much resistance, and pushing into the base and starting to take off quite a bit of land forces here, including structures, and actually doing a fairly okay job dodging those demolisher shots as well. Ultimately, however, the Aeon teleport does manage to clinch the win for Illluvision, making him our victor of this round 2 match. 2-0, Illluvision wins. If you're still watching, give a thumbs up to this video. If you liked the video, leave a comment. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you are blown away by it, check out my Patreon page. This has been Nite. Take care and peace out.